In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the IELTS listening test and some techniques that you can use to improve your score after the recording stops. I call these post-listening skills. So you want to use this time. This time is very important and you shouldn't waste it. You're given 10 minutes to transfer your answers, and there's some things that you really should be doing during this time. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. At the end of your listening test, you'll be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. This video explains how to use this time wisely. There are three main things that you should do during this time. You should carefully transfer your answers to the answer sheet. You should check for spelling or grammatical errors. You should fill in something for any missing answers. Guess if you don't know the answer. Let's look at these in a bit more detail. Be careful with transferring your answers to the answer sheet. Make sure you put the correct answer in the correct space on the answer sheet. I know this sounds easy, but it's easy when stressed and under pressure to make mistakes. Be particularly careful with multiple choice answers, as it's very easy to make mistakes when transferring these. Remember that you've got 10 minutes, so relax and don't rush. You must also be careful that you write your answers clearly, because if it's too difficult to read what you have written, your answer will be marked as wrong. Again, be careful with multiple choice questions. Be careful that it's easy for the examiner to read the letters that you've written. Be careful with words. Make sure your handwriting is clear. Make sure that you check for spelling or grammatical errors when you transfer your answers. It could be that you've misspelt something on the question sheet. Make sure you fix that error when you transfer it. Also, when you've finished transferring all your answers, you've probably got some spare time. Remember, you've got 10 minutes in total. Use that time to check your answer sheet and check spelling errors and also errors with grammar. Now, it's important to know that punctuation does not matter, so don't waste time checking for this during your 10 minutes. For instance, capital letters do not matter. We can write the word London without a capital letter and it's still correct. We don't have to worry about hyphens, so if the answer is right-handed, it doesn't matter whether you put a hyphen in there or not. So don't waste time on things that don't matter. You should also use this time to guess any missing answers. Fill in something for any missing answers. Use this time to guess any missing answers, as no points are taken away from you if you guess incorrectly. On the other hand, a correct guess can mean the difference between the grade you want and having to take the test again. Certain question types, such as multiple choice, are particularly useful to have a guess on. You've got some sort of chance of getting it right if you have a guess, whereas you've got no chance if you don't have a guess. So really there's no risk involved, and you should have a guess for any missing answer. Now I'm going to give you an example of how you can actually do this in your test. Okay, so in the post-listening stage, there's three main things we want to do. Firstly, to carefully transfer answers from the question sheet to the answer sheet. I'm not going to show you that today, but you can sort of use common sense on that. Then the second one, check for spelling or grammatical errors. And 3, fill in something for any missing answers. I'll talk a little bit about this one, but especially I've got a couple of issues to show you for number 2, and we'll talk about number 3. Okay, so the first issue that I'm going to talk about is for question 11. When was the show first broadcast? Now let's just imagine that we misheard the answer or we've miswritten it down, either one, and we've got on our answer sheet 1889. Now think about it, that's not really possible because TV wasn't being shown back in 1889. So I would be thinking about that, and I'd be thinking something's wrong. What could it be? Well, it's probably 1989, right? So we could just change that 8 into a 9. It couldn't really be anything else. There's no other number there, and then we just hope that the other digits are correct. So we find this error, and possibly even we just wrote it down wrong, and then we can even remember back. If you're lucky, you might be able to remember. If you couldn't, 1889 is ridiculous. It must be 1989. Okay. Then if we look down here, of course, Microsoft Word finds this. A lot of occupations end in ER. So maybe we've made a mistake here and written this down as ER. Well, we're not going to have Microsoft Word to be helping us. But just by reading through, we might read, oh, yeah, that's right. It should be OR. And really, as part of your preparation for the test, I would be looking at things like occupations and how to spell them, because these are quite common answers. So we have doctor with an OR, inspector with an OR, but most of them actually have ER endings. Okay, so you want to try and read and just catch as many errors as you can. It could change your score by half a band, and you've got 10 minutes. A quarter of the test is this post-listening stage. So you want to use this time wisely. If I don't find this mistake, well, I mean, if I spend my 10 minutes and I just overlook it, that's fine. But if, let's imagine that after 5 minutes you're sitting there doing nothing and you've got this one mistake that you might be able to find, it could make the difference between half a band. That 5 minutes of checking could make the difference between having to come back and take the whole test again. So it's worth spending the 5 minutes trying to find things. We've got the answer here too, but let's imagine we didn't. How many hairs does Homer have? Well, you could have a guess. I would probably guess 0 if I had to. Or if you can visualize Homer Simpson, maybe you realize that there's 2. You can use your general knowledge here. And you definitely want to be writing something down. This is definitely a case where you want to be guessing. Don't just leave a blank space here. Write a million if you want, write something. But if you know Homer Simpson, I'd be guessing 0, 1, 2, 10 at the most. I just want to show you an instance too. Imagine you're still taking the test. You're still in the listening stage and you actually hear. Let's imagine you don't hear this word. So for some reason you don't hear how many. So you hear he only has something hairs. Hairs gives you a clue. We wouldn't say 0 hairs. We'd say 0 hair. Or he doesn't have any hair. We'd say 1 hair. We would say 2 hairs, 3 hairs. Okay. So if you've heard the word hairs, it couldn't be 0, it couldn't be 1 because they would have hair without the S. So it must be 2 or more. Okay, so that might help you to guess. So we can sometimes guess an answer by the words around the answer. So even if we did not hear that answer, we remember something around the answer. So that's just another technique that I wanted to share with you. And really the thing I'd like to emphasize most is that you want to use this 10 minutes. Don't sit there doing nothing. Do a spot check on your answers. You could check every 5th question is in the right place. So look at your question paper, look at question 5, look at the answer page, check that number 5 lines up, check that number 10 lines up, check that number 15 lines up. And then if you discover any kind of discrepancy, you could start looking at some of the other numbers as well. And then spending time looking for spelling or grammatical errors. Okay. And then finally just trying to fill in something, making intelligent guesses wherever you've got an empty space on your test paper. So I hope that gives you some ideas about what you should be doing with the 10 minutes that you have in your test. Practice this. Practice taking past test papers and doing all three stages, the pre-listening, the during listening, and the post-listening skills. Practice all three parts so that you'll be successful in your test, so that you won't have to take the test many times. It's frustrating and expensive.